Hello, my name is Kelvin, and I am going to save my lungs with a fan, a QM2, and a little ATtiny 25. So let's get started. Before we get going, I would like to say that I have changed the name of this channel. It is now eMaker instead of The Tech I Missed. I just figured that it sort of fit a little bit more with the whole premise of this channel. I do a lot of things with electronics, and I make things as well. So I just put them together, and rather than focusing always on old computers or retro computing, we're just going to focus on making things, whether it's electronics or something else. But with that out of the way, let's get on to the project. So basically what we're going to do is we got a 12-volt fan here, and we have a little fish tank filters, and we are going to put this all in a 3D printed container with the QM2, which is a sensor for gases and things like that. And when it reaches a certain level of saturation of gas, it's going to it's going to keep putting out numbers. And when it gets a high enough number, the ATtiny is just going to open up a few ports. It's going to open up this MOSFET right here, which will let 12 volts pass through to the fan. And then it'll light some lights up too, so we know it's working. And that's it, basically. It's going to suck in the smoke from the soldering iron and push it through this little filter here. It's, what's it called? Carbon filter. And that'll be that. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to build in Blender the box for the project. But first I need to take measurements of the components that need holes. So I'm going to take measurements now and write them down so that I can use them in Blender. And I will leave the Blender file for those that want to use it in my Patreon, link below. And so I just designed the box in Blender. This is just a really quick overview. And when that's done, I put it in Ultimaker Cura and get it ready to print. So let's have a look at the schematic here. Here we have our barrel jack, which is giving us 12 volts. This is our positive, this is our ground. And the 12 volts is going to come over here to our LM7805. We have a couple smoothing capacitors here. I used a 10 UF and a 0.33 UF. So 12 volts going to come in here, then 5 volts out. And that 5 volts out is going to go to our ATtiny here. And we have it grounded on pin 4 there. And all we're going to use from the ATtiny is pin 2, which is going to go to the MQ2 sensor. This is the analog output, which is what we're using. And this is the data output. I mean, I know some of these only have 3 pins. This one, the one I'm using, happens to have 4. So we're not using the data out, so it's not connected. And we have our ground, and then our 5 volts connected to here. So when the detector detects a certain level, it's going to be turned into a number by the ATtiny. I used 450, and as you'll see, it's not sensitive enough. So yeah, you'll probably want to test your soldering iron near it before you settle on a number to use for when this clicks on. In any case, when it gets to the number, when this gets to whatever number, it's going to send a signal into the ATtiny saying, hey, I've reached my number. And then that's going to output, that's going to make this line high, which is going to go over here to our MOSFET, which is going to open the gate, and it's going to allow the ground to be connected through here, which will open up which will switch our relay. So this has 5 volts going through it, but nowhere to go, because we've got this diode here. This is a flywheel diode, which prevents the 5 volts from coming down into here. Anyway, so the ground is going to, once this gate opens on the MOSFET, we now have a connection to ground, which means our 5 volts and ground are together, and that allows saturation for the relay, which opens up the relay, which will move this switch from here to here. So since this is normally open, we're going to not connect anything, or normally closed, normally closed. So the connection is connected, closed. So we're not going to have anything connected there. So when the relay is not getting saturated or not getting electricity through it, the switch will be there. But when the electricity goes through it, the relay switches to over here, which makes our 12 volts that's coming here on our common pin over 12 volts here, which allows the 12 volts to go through to the fan. And we have the negative connected to the fan. And that's basically it. So 12 volts in, lower it to 5 volts. This does get a little hot with 12 volts going to it. At least mine did. So I put a little heat sink on it that helped. Plus this fan's going to be blowing on it when it's on, so it'll cool it down quite a bit. And goes to the sensor so the ATtiny will be on, and then the sensor will be on, and once the sensor senses something, it'll send a signal to the ATtiny 25. 25 sends this pin high, which opens up the MOSFET and allows the negative signal to go through, which allows the relay to saturate and flips the switch inside the relay, allowing our 12 volts to go through here and running the fan. That's it. All right, so we've got this code here. So we'd find our pin coming out from the MQ2 module, and then our output pin on the ATtiny 25. And we set our pin modes here. So obviously we're setting our pin on the ATtiny from the MQ2 to input, and we're going to output our output pin. We're going to start it out with low, and then we're going to get our sensor value by analog read on the MQ2 pin. And this right here, the number 300, this is where I found was a good number. It can go anywhere from 0 to 1024 or 1023. Anyway, 300 for me was a good place for it to sense vapor or anything like that, and plus shut off in a decent amount of time. So we're just going to make the output pin high if it's over 300, and if it's not, we're going to shut it down. And that's it. That's all the code we need for the ATtiny. All right, so now that we've got this code done, we've got my ATtiny on the board here. You can do it however you want to flash the chip. I mean, everyone has their ways and their systems. I'm actually on a Mac, and while I could make a programmer out of an Arduino, I don't want to, because I've already got the TL8662 EEPROM programmer, so I'm just using that. And since I have that, I don't have it connected through Arduino here, so I'm just going to compile the code. And you can see that it shows the output here. I already have it open, so I'm going to delete this. So I'm going to copy the hex file here. And I'm going to use my MiniPro GUI. I actually wrote this program. It's basically just a GUI for the MiniPro program if you happen to use Mac. And you have a TL8662. It'll help with using the MiniPro software because you don't have to write everything out. It makes it quite a bit easier. I prefer using this over typing everything out in the terminal. But anyway, so I already have the hex file there. Oh, maybe I don't. Anyway, so I got the hex file there now. Clear this, and I will write the chip. Right to the chip, and as you can see, it goes through here and looks okay. I'll clear that out, and we'll just check to see if it's blank. Got verification failed. That means it is not blank. That means the code is on it. If it were blank, it would say code section is blank. Memory section is obviously blank because I'm not using the EEPROM. And that is it for that. So now I've got the code on the ATtiny 25, and we'll go to the next step. Okay, so here we have the breadboard, and this is the MQ2 sensor. You can see it right there. And this is our MOSFET. There is our ATtiny, and there is our 7805. It gets quite hot with 12 volts. So I've got this little heat sink on it, and air is going to be coming in anyway, so it's going to cool that off as well. So as I stated before, all of this, we're going to use my bench power supply here. We can turn this on. It's already at 12 volts. And we will. Okay, so you can see this thing does that for some reason. It'll take a minute for this to turn off. Okay, so as you can see here, this is just the circuit's on and ready to go light. It's a little warm, the 7805, but it's okay. I'm just going to take some gas from a lighter and put it on there. Turn it on, and you could hear the click from the relay when the light's on, and in a minute or two or a few seconds it'll stop once the gas clears. Okay, so there, it turned off. We'll do it again. It turns on, and that's it. So like I said, it's very easy to hook this stuff up. We're just hooking the output of the MQ2 to a pin on the ATtiny. It's very, 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 very simple. I don't know if there's anything special here I want to show you. Just I do have a pull down resistor for the output of the MQ2, and you also want to make sure you have resistors going from the gate to ground. So make sure you have those. Okay, so I have my little box done. I designed a hole for this exact button right here, and I have a little slot to put the filter in, and I've got the plug right here for the 12 volt. This is a, find it, what to do with it. It's plugged in. This is an outside negative and inside positive. So you want to make sure you wired it up correctly, depending on what kind of plug you have. So it's working, but I have one small problem, which I wasn't anticipating. I should have been mindful of it. I should have tested first, but I did not. So, well, let's go ahead and have a look here. So let's just plug it in. And after this, this warms up a second, it will, the LED should turn on. Oh, I gotta turn it on first. Okay, so not that LED. The green LED should turn on after about 10 seconds. One of these, I'm not sure which. Okay, this one. And it automatically, for some reason, starts on, but it'll stop in a second. See, okay, so it stopped. Okay, so we're gonna take the lighter here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of fuel to it, and you'll see it will turn on. All right, so it's working. You can feel it. And should stop any second now. All right, so stop. Now, that's all well and good. Problem is, I don't think it works with solder. Let's put a little bit of flux on here. See what happens. Oh, there it goes. But you need a lot. So I don't know if I'm going to generate that much smoke from it, but it's a little late now since I have the ATtiny already soldered in there. I probably should have, okay, so the solder smoke does work, so that's good, that's all well and good. But it probably needs to be a little bit more what's it called? Sensitive. So, that being the case, feel free to test it unlike I did if you want to make one of these yourself. But what I'm going to do is just go ahead and leave this all like this. And I'm just going to connect the 12 volts directly to the fan and just do it that way, because I want to make sure it works, and I don't want to have to build this again or that's this board again. I don't have time for it. So yeah, I'm just going to go directly to 12 volts. I just have to move one wire. This stuff will still work the same as it does, except it's not going to be turning on the fan anymore. It's just going to be turn on the LEDs and whatever else. So that is that. I'm going to put this all together, and we'll have a look at it once I get this set up. Like I said, if you want to build one of these, just test it with your soldering iron and things like that. Might want to use a lower number for when the QM2 triggers, or MQ2. Anyway, whenever the sensor triggers, yeah, you want to make sure that it's going to pick it up faster than what this does for me, because that just probably won't work. I don't think I generally have that much smoke coming off. Yeah, I mean, see, that's taking a lot. And it still hasn't started. There it goes. See how it's pulling the smoke in there? Yeah. Definitely needs to be a little bit more sensitive. And that's on me. But it's okay. I'll just have it to where I turn it on. Not a waste of time because now you know. And maybe someday I'll make this project again on my own. Who knows? Probably not. I never have time. So anyway, let's put this together. All right, so here it is all put together. As you can see, when I turn it on, take a second to warm up. That's just coded. All right, and this light will turn off in a minute. This is the power light. This is the detection light. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it out real quick. Got one of my 4116 testers here. Just gonna solder on the ZIF socket. Get it on there. There we go. See how well it does here. If you need a 4116 tester, I'll leave a link at the bottom. Also, if you need a XoomFloppy, I still have those for the C64. I'll leave a link down for those as well, down below. Anyway, so let's see here. I'm gonna suck it. Maybe you need a little stronger fan. I just happen to have those fans laying around from a build from a while back. Actually, I've had them for a few years. Yeah, maybe a more powerful fan. But, you know, I can do it closer to it, and it'll still save my lungs, which is the important part. At least it's not coming up in my face like it normally does. Yeah, I think a little stronger fan would have been better. I just grabbed what I had. Of course, I have some used fans, but I didn't bother with those. Well, it's working, so that's good. So there you go. You can go to my Patreon page if you want to download the files for this box and the schematic. I'll have that there for free. It'll just be there. If you want to become a patron, that's fine. You don't think you have to. It's just they'll be there. In any case, this is it. This is the nasty solder smoke sucker. All right. One more thing. Yeah, you might have noticed that this is the first video I've done for quite a long time. So I've been really busy. I've been working. I have a lot of projects going on. I moved. I'm actually probably going to move again. So yeah, kind of hectic. So I want to try to put out a video at least once every 2 weeks if I can. If I can't, then I can't. But when I do put out a video, I hope to see you there, and I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching.